So as you can tell, I have a pretty cool job, and I too am like astonished by the music. I'm not used to that. I have an amazing job, and I wanted to key in on something that Suzanne said as she introduced this session earlier, and it's that I am optimistic. And one of the reasons I'm optimistic is because I get to cover what's actually happening, what's working, and what people are planning for the future. So what I'm going to do with this next session is talk about some companies that have made a real impact already, but have really been persistent and ambitious and courageous with what they're doing. It's a terrific group of companies, and I'd like to ask my speakers to start joining me today. I'm going to start with Isabelle Cocher, CEO of Engie. KK Maheshwari, he is the managing director of UltraTech Cement. Steve Kokoda, he's the executive director of the International Copper Association. And heading in from across town, and to join us in a moment, we'll have Nancy Mann, and she's the senior vice president of global corporate citizenship and sustainability with Estée Lauder Companies. Thank you very much for being with us today. Please have a seat, get cozy, get comfy. And I really wanted to thank the Climate Group for making this event such a fantastic event this week. Thank you. Isabelle, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to put you on the spot first, kinda, actually, because I wanted to say something that I just read that I didn't know about. So clearly, I knew that Engie ranks among the top 10 power companies in the world. But I didn't know that after the close of a sale that you announced in April, just 4% of your power will be from coal, from your generation capacity will be from coal. Just 4% of a top 10 power company. Congratulations, that's a pretty amazing accomplishment. And of course, you are moving as quickly as you can to decarbonize. You've had a program in place that you put in place 3 years ago. And I would want to know what you see as the next step, right? So you're making these things happen. What do you see as the next step for multinational companies like Engie to really achieve a zero carbon future?
Well, I believe that to decarbonize is not enough.
Yeah.
And that's the point. Mm-hmm. If we just decarbonize, that is to say, if we just replace, which is already something, by the way, but we just replace carbonized energy by decarbonized energy, it is not affordable.
Right.
It is not affordable. Green energy is more expensive per unit than decarbonized energy, and that's fully normal. We need to invest in a new generation of green plants, green power production plants, and they cannot compete with all the ones fully amortized. So, and I don't believe that there is a room for an increase of the energy bill, neither for citizens nor for companies. So I really believe that the limit we have to pass is this one, is to make it affordable. If we don't make it affordable, we cannot move at the right pace. So the only way I know to make it affordable, that is to say with an energy bill that stays stable, let's say, it's to reduce the energy consumption massively. And at Engie, as you said kindly, thank you very much for the introduction. So we were used to be, first of all, an energy producer.
Yeah.
And we shifted. We decided to shift to address that limit, to have a real and rapid impact. And now our first business is to help our clients to consume less energy and to be paid for that. So we inverted our business models. And really that's the only way to make it, to make zero carbon move affordable, and then to reach that race, because it is a race. And we systematically have the same approach. Sufficiency, to question the usages. Is it normal that we are obliged to have a jacket and a scarf in our offices, frankly, when there is a heat wave outside? Can we re-question that? So sufficiency, that's the sufficiency or the behavioral part of the equation, which is already significant. We can save 10, 15% like that. Second is the efficiency part, okay? we need X degree in our office. Let's replace all facilities by new ones, much more efficient, digitalized, consuming an average 30% less than before. So you see, when you do this, when you address these two layers, you can save almost 50% on the energy bill. And then you can go to the third step. After sufficiency, efficiency comes circularity. The remaining part of energy, you can replace it by green, high-quality energy. And all in all, it is affordable. So this is the way the move we started. We started because we believe that what is at stake is our license to operate. We started because we were convinced that to do so would give to ENGIE more attractiveness. It was a bet. Let's say the truth. It was a bet. But we had this strong intuition that in the society of today, we have to align rapidly our business models with what society wants. Mm-hmm. And we got 3 years after. That's not a lot, 3 years. We are a company that exists for 100 years. 3 years is very short. And over this very short period of time, we have been able to demonstrate that at the end of this shift, we are more profitable, we are more rapidly growing, and we are more attractive. We got 80% more resume this year versus 3 years ago.
Yeah, so that was one thing. Just a quick follow-up. And how did you convince the investors? Like, I mean, you have to do this internally, of course, right? It has to be a persistent and constant drumbeat. But how did you get the buy-in from your backers and your partners?
Well, initially, a lot of skepticism. Mm-hmm. I asked them 3 years. I told them, let me 3 years to demonstrate, to show you that we will be, financially speaking, on top of what in my view is key. It's responsibility. But let me demonstrate in 3 years that from a pure value creation point of view, it is okay. And it is more than okay. We increased our total shareholder return. Now, since you give me the opportunity, this is fantastic to see that this is the last piece of the game that is not moving enough. I believe everybody in this room has to measure the fact that we often say financial institutions, but they are just intermediaries. Yeah. They are intermediaries. It is not their money, it's our money.
Right.
And I believe that this is an important point. I'm often impressed by the fact that if you take somebody in the street, maybe it's true for yourself, as a consumer, you are extremely active and aware. And we change on average all our behaviors as consumers. As talents, the same. And the young generation we saw on the screen is extremely clear on that. They don't want to work for companies that are not taking care. But as savers, the same guy has no clue on average, statistically, on where its money is invested. And I believe the day we have, you know these apps when you can scan a product in a store to see if it is a good quality product or not, with a good environmental footprint or not. The day we have the same for our own pension funds, it will shift much more rapidly. So I believe here there is a piece in the game that is not yet aligned, let's say.
Great. So KK, next up. So UltraTech Cement is the largest manufacturer of gray cement, ready mixed concrete, and white cement in India. So obviously the sector is one of the most energy intensive in your country and certainly around the world. How did the Indian cement sector become, quote, the most efficient in the world? And how do you think the Indian cement sector can help India lead on climate action? Like, how can you be an example?
So one, of course, is the clear advantage that we had in terms of the fact that we were lagging in industrialization.
Right.
So as against the plants that you would find in the developed world, most of the plants that have been set up in India are of recent vintage, so they are the most energy efficient plants. So that helped us just starting out late. The other thing is the opportunity to convert every adversity into an opportunity. And I think as a group, we believe that that's essential, especially in a country like India, where there are lots of constraint on resources, be it fossil resources or non-fossil resources, as well as other resources. And that's where the emphasis right from beginning was to see how every year we can get that much more efficient by making fundamental improvements to the processes that we might have bought even from the Western world. And I think that process of continuous improvement was ingrained as a philosophy, and that helped us a great deal. Third, of course, again, I wouldn't advocate that because, industry is always the whipping boy, put more taxes on it. But due to the social environment, there have been a lot of indirect burden on the industry. For example, energy in India is expensive, not just because it costs more to generate, but the fact that there is a large section of the society which the government has to legitimately take care of. And instead of giving them a direct benefit, they sort of load that cost of electricity onto your cost, which makes industry very much more costly to use power. And that again led to a huge pressure on the industry to figure out ways of getting more efficient. I think a combination of the socio-economic factors helped us. And the other important thing which has happened is the dramatic reduction in cost of some of the renewable energy. I do appreciate that wind energy continues to be a little more expensive, but solar energy, it's a dramatic transformation of what the world has achieved. It used to be about 25 cents about 15 years back. Now you get it for less than 5 cents. Make lots of economic sense for you to use renewable energy. So I think clearly the momentum towards being more cost effective has been there. And what we have found so far is that all these initiatives on sustainability haven't really been negative to the economic working of the company just because of the environment in which we operated. So they were always beneficial in terms of what they did to your profitability. The other important thing which we had to do was just because of the environment there, that there are opportunities for us to use other cementitious material. Like, cement doesn't get used as cement, it has to be used as concrete. And then there's a tremendous opportunity for us. Actually, cement industry can pretty much take care of the waste of all the waste that's generated. When you run your kiln at 1800 degrees centigrade, pretty much it can consume anything which has any heat value in it. Mm-hmm. And that's what, and again, a lot of cementitious material can be used. So again, what we have done is picking up the alternative fuel. That means the waste. So the paint companies, for example, which were earlier incinerating their waste or putting it into landfill, can be gainfully utilized in the cement industry. So we partnered with many of them, and almost 4% of our energy needs are met now through use of waste of other industries. Clearly, a potential exists for it to go up much more, but that requires a larger socio-economic coalition of people willing to, because then, we need to make modifications to our plant, so pretty much that we're also willing to pay. We can pretty much use all the municipal waste. We're not talking about municipal waste so much, we've been talking about it, but it becomes a problem in a land-starved country because anything you put in the ground ultimately leaches out. So, we could pretty much use all the municipal waste provided it's properly segregated. We made beginnings on that, and we do hope that we can carry forward that momentum because it's never going to be enough with what we have done. So clearly a whole lot of things we have done. By no means is the challenge over. We recognize that even though like with the renewable energies, because we can have a lot of waste heat. So almost about 500 megawatts of our power consumption, which is almost like half gigabytes, is through renewable energy, either generated through waste heat from our plant or renewable energy in a couple of years' time. So that's sort of our contribution to the society. Going forward, the biggest challenge which we envisage is that while we are appreciative of the fact that we need a sustainable environment, we also need to make sure we have a sustainable society. And in India, huge effort is being put in by the government in terms of housing for all, because that's an essential requirement for people to live. Also, a huge gap in infrastructure to bring it on par with the best in the world. Now, which means that for the next few years, we do expect that the cement industry will continue to have to grow. And the biggest challenge which we find is that despite a lot of efforts so far, no solution has been found to the CO2 emissions which take place due to the chemical composition of limestone, which is to be converted into cement and concrete.
Right.
There, the effort that we have put in, almost 30% of it we have replaced to other cementitious material, but that's, if you ask me, the next biggest challenge on which we are working, and where we hope that we can have a breakthrough so that we can also make sure that we have a sustainable society and also do our bit for the sustainable environment.
Great, thank you for that. Steve, I want to start by reading your mission statement, which
Okay.
I plucked off your website. The International Copper Association aims to bring together the global copper industry to develop and defend markets for copper and to make a positive contribution to society's sustainable development goals. Wow, okay, so I didn't know.
It's quite a mission.
It is quite a mission.
I better get
and
off stage and
heard
get to
a little
work.
Bit, heard a little bit from Charlene Lake with AT&T about the sort of industry collaborative role, right? So what role do you believe industry-focused alliances should play in driving progress, and how has your organization helped catalyze action within the individual member companies? So I see what you're doing together, but how are they taking back and benefiting from what you're doing?
Right, sure. Well, I think one of the most interesting and important things that we do is we build partnerships around the Sustainable Development Goals. And I could say with a high degree of certainty that we're making some level of impact on all 17 of the SDGs, some more than others, but I at the risk of sounding
By
modest
intention.
Pardon me?
By intention.
By intention. And I obviously have a bias for copper, but I think that we may be,
I would hope,
of any other metal or material, more closely linked to the global sustainable development agenda. In particular, we're focused on energy. Obviously, we're like any other mining type of industry. Energy is often the highest expense for our member companies. We use a lot of it, unfortunately. So we run energy efficiency programs around the world to try to scale up energy efficiency and its needed contributions to the Paris Agreement. Everyone here probably, we hear a lot about renewables, we hear a lot about electromobility, but energy efficiency actually accounts for the largest percentage of actions in the Paris Climate Change Agreement, and it often gets overlooked. A vast majority of the developing world countries don't have standards in place. If they do, they're woefully behind best available technology. So we try to catalyze action as an industry to increase energy efficiency standards, to create frameworks to allow countries to transition quickly towards energy efficiency. Eric Rondelet, the CEO of Signify, earlier spoke very briefly about a new initiative called the 3% Club that's being launched today. I'm almost thankful he didn't say a lot because it gives me an opportunity maybe to say a little bit more about it. So 3% Club is, as he had said, 15 countries, including India. The convening countries are Denmark and Ethiopia, so we have developed world and developing world perspectives and leaderships coming into the initiative. And why 3%? Well, 3% is the global annual rate of improvement that is needed in energy efficiency if it is going to make its needed contributions to the Paris Agreement. I was at a breakfast at the Danish embassy this morning, and one of the speakers provided an interesting anecdote that I hadn't considered. That percentage of energy efficiency need is actually growing year to year because other needed technologies aren't doing the job. Carbon capture and storage, for example, was cited. So if other technologies aren't delivering what they need to for Paris, well, then energy efficiency's role becomes more and more important. So Eric Rondelet will be at the General Assembly this afternoon when the official launch of the 3% Club is made, and we're very excited to be an implementing partner in that. And the convening organizations are the International Energy Agency, Sustainable Energy for All, the Energy Efficiency Global Alliance, the Global Environment Facility, UN Environment. And so I know if you go to the EE Global Alliance website, you could find the press release that was just issued while we were all sitting here to get more details. And then another area that's important to us is cooling, right?
Right.
So today, roughly, 1.2 billion air conditioners around the world. By 2050, 4.5 billion, so more than triple of that amount, right? Think about the impact on energy use and then the associated impacts on climate change if we don't get that right. In terms of low global warming potential refrigerants, in terms of efficiency. So what our industry does is we develop technologies that will enable the cooling space to be more efficient, to be able to operate with the low global warming potential refrigerants, et cetera.
I would actually like to invite Nancy to join us here.
Oh, sure.
She's thank you so much.
The taxes.
So, I'm going to jump ahead, if you will. And Nancy, I would love to, hopefully your people prepped you, but I would like to jump ahead to a question because it was something that I saw in your latest swatch of announcements, or commitments rather, in the spring. And it had to do with the supply chain stuff. So is it the responsibility of a business to ensure that its approaches are mirrored through its supply chains? So this is something I struggle with a lot. I think companies should do more here. What's your philosophy on that?
Yes.
Okay, how?
Well, in terms of our climate commitments, and essentially our goal, which is I'm sure the goal of all consumer goods companies, is to embed sustainability in every aspect of our business.
Right.
We're in a great place, quite honestly, through the work of our great employees and also the demand from our great consumers, is that we're in a very high growth moment. So my challenge and my opportunity is how do you take this incredible high growth company in sectors like beauty, where you see huge different moments in skincare or in makeup and taste demands among consumers. So, like most consumer goods companies, we have direct manufacturing that we do when we have third-party suppliers. So essentially, in terms of the work that we're doing, is we're partnering. I mean, what we're really seeking to try and do is partner with third parties like EcoVadis to make sure that we are hitting third-party standards of where we need to be. And we look at all of our work through the lens of investors, consumers, and employees. And certainly for consumers, particularly in beauty, we're in a moment where there is a lot of focus on ingredient transparency, and there's a lot of focus on not only how you treat your workers, but how you treat the folks that make your products. So the answer is yes. Where we could use help, both in the carbon sector and I think in terms of the ingredient transparency and supply chain, are cross-sector partnerships. We've been really actively looking for how we can partner. And that's not only in terms of our work, but also with our retail partners. So I was just in London last week meeting with ASOS and Selfridges, so very different programs, but they are also seeing folks sit at the counter, which is great, asking for different programs. And so we're looking for cross-sector and then throughout the value chain.
Do you suggest, prescribe, how do you get the buy-in? I mean, not from the cross-sector stuff, but back to your supply chain, is it?
Yeah, I mean, we approach this work with all humility, which I think is an important thing to have. I mean, it's important, I think, to lean in, but also in terms of prescribing, we certainly have the power to buy what we want to buy from our suppliers. So we certainly prescribe certain standards, and in partnership with EcoVadis, we enforce those. Palm oil, we work with RSPO. So we certainly prescribe. I think, though, at the same time, we have to understand that there's no such thing as a perfect company. And I think we do any of the sectors disservice if we start basically chest beating and saying we're the founding of this or we're the founding of that and we're the best. It's not really, to me, it shouldn't be a goals race. It shouldn't be a numbers game. It should be how do we get there more quickly together? And that, from my vantage point, is a place where we honestly could use help. So we're building our green energy portfolios in China, in the United States. We're generally not a huge user of green energy, but we need the best green energy as quickly as possible that meets our company's business standards, which are very high. So there is an area where I guess we could use help. And the other thing is we spent a lot of time doing the math on our goals. And it was very important that we're a company that keeps our promises. We've hit our results, I think some crazy number like 15 quarters. But we literally, across teams on packaging, see Alan Uzi, who's our head of VP of Sustainability, we spent a lot of time doing the math, Rand Tao, who's been working with us. So we're doing the math in all humility. We'd love to hit our goals early, but we're definitely going to hit our goals. For us, the fewer dollars I can spend hitting a net zero goal, the more dollars I can put into packaging innovation.
Right.
And so I think that's really the great collective challenge we have, is how do we work across sectors to find solutions?
Great. Now I want to throw this question out to the panel because a couple of you have referenced the opportunity associated with taking action. Also a little bit of frustration, things aren't necessarily moving fast enough. So is the technology there to do these things that we want to do? Are you frustrated by certain, I guess you have to count on certain things from other places, but can we move fast enough right now? Should we be moving? I mean, we all know we should be moving faster, but are the tools there to do it? Isabel, do you have a take on that?
Well, I believe that this is not mainly a technological challenge. I don't believe technology exists. Of course, they will continue to be developed, and a new generation of renewables are coming. For example, I don't know if you heard about this new generation of PV, organic PV, with flexibility in terms of usage that will be great. It's a flexible plastic film, renewable plastic, that could be put on the buildings, the windows. So a lot of new things are coming, but even with the existing range of technologies, we have a lot. It's more a question of awareness that the capitalism has to be refunded. But it's impressive to hear all these so different sectors: energy, copper, cement, cosmetics. Yeah. We all are saying the same. Mm-hmm. We all are saying that we are currently reinventing our purpose, and that because it is motivating per se, but also because we all are aware that it is absolutely part of our license to operate. So, and this is this move that has to be accelerated. Mm-hmm. And it's also a question of regulation. And here, really, I believe that the states have to work more together to set up a CO2 price. This is needed. We need a carbon price if we want to accelerate the pace. So it's about regulation to set to create the conditions of this acceleration. It's much more than purely technologies.
Other thoughts on technology or policy?
Technology is all there, right?
Yep.
So I am frustrated that you're not seeing things happen faster. I can tell you in my experience, I think why it's not happening faster isn't because of technology, it's because of inertia, often unfortunately in governments, not creating policy frameworks so that the clean energy transition will happen faster. Look, I say this sometimes controversially. I believe in regulation because left to their own devices, people, individual consumers and businesses will generally make bad decisions. Mm-hmm. There are industry leaders, but if you put policies in place, you set baselines that forces people and consumers to adhere to.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing more is our consumers, our investors, and our employees are demanding more and better. So, and we see ourselves as accountable to those three groups. I think in terms of responsibility, at least for me, we don't have any problem with the pull, right? There is huge demand across our business now for green energy. I think what might be helpful is to talk about a marketplace and talk about so for instance, we've looked broadly into forests, and these are my experience has been they're very nascent markets, and they're very nascent technologies in some instances. And if there was a way that we could sort of get out of our sector lanes and work across sectors and basically say, not tax, not price, but where is it that we're trying to go? and what are the pieces that need to be accelerated in terms of business. I mean, that's where I feel, quite honestly, people are making the right decisions. Where I'm seeing the challenge as the head of sustainability is to have enough solid business options to bring to the company to invest in at the scale that we need to. But I think particularly in consumer goods, consumers are driving us in great ways to be authentic, to be honest, and to create great solutions. Anything we can do in our sector and across sectors to help create more solutions that are business-based, we're in.
KK, is what you're doing with your industry in India sort of helping with your global message? I mean, that seems to be a differentiator for you.
So there are two different aspects, like I come from an industry where my take on this subject is going to be on two different aspects. One, of course, is how do we reduce the consumption of cement and concrete. Goes counterintuitively to you're trying to sell more volumes, but then you recognize the challenge that we face in the marketplace. And there, I think we are coming, the aspect more is on knowledge aspect rather than the technology aspect. And there, I would say that there's a lot of work happening in terms of, for example, coming up with lightweight concrete. Can you have a building of this size with using 25-30% less concrete than what you would do otherwise? And there's a lot of work we are doing, our competitors are doing, recognizing our responsibility to the world. The other, like Ellen talked about, is the behavioral aspect. And while we are focused on CO2, I can tell you, and we are very proud that, for example, plastics as a company, we are net plastic negative. That means we burn up more plastics than we consume. Water positivity, we are more than 2.5x water positive. That means we contribute back to society 2.5 times the water that we take. So I think we'll also have to look at sustainability in the broader aspect in the terms of behavioral aspect, which she's talking about. So that's on the knowledge aspects. On the technology aspects, I have a different take from Steve, because you can talk all about carbon capturing, but how many commercial plants have gone in for carbon capturing and storage? Secondly, are we just postponing the problem? Because that means I can continue to generate CO2 and I'll stuff it down somewhere, as long as you have a place to stuff it in, and you don't know what are going to be the consequences of that stuffing in, because you're again playing with Mother Nature. The other important thing is, how do we come up, at least in cement, that's the major challenge, which if you ask me what makes me awake, keeps me awake at night, is the aspect that despite all the progress, no one has been able to figure out, other than using cementitious material, how do we sort of reduce the CO2 emissions which come out of the natural process, because you have to use limestone. That's a work in process. I do hope we'll have a breakthrough quickly so that we can do even a bit more than what we're doing now.
So technically, my time is up.
There's literally a big message that
There's
says
this message
your time
flashing
is up.
here, but I want to do like one quick final thought, like quick, from each person on the panel. If you want, Isabel, you're looking at me. Go for it.
Well, we all said we need regulation. We need the states, they set up the conditions, but let's absolutely start even without that. If everybody waits for everybody, we cannot manage the energy transition at the right pace. So let's do the job.
I think we all know what's to be done, so let's just get on with it and do it. Do our bit rather than waiting for others.
Steve.
I'll finish the thought I started earlier where it talks about regulation. The other piece that's missing is financing. Technology is there, often it's more expensive. So we've got to get creative with financing.
Yeah, I would just say cross-sector solutions, let's reverse engineer from the solution itself. Regulations, if we chase regulations, it's going to be much too expensive. We need to find the solutions that our customers are looking for and we're looking for together across sectors.
Thank you very much. I'm sad we're out of time. Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you.